Hancock is a graduate of the University of New Mexico, earning his BA with a triple major in history, cultural anthropology, and education. After serving in the United States Air Force, he pursued a corporate career in technical education and technology marketing. Following retirement, he turned to historical research and published several collections of CIA, FBI, and military documents prior to writing and publishing a dozen books in the Cold War era military and national security topics, including Unidentified, the National Intelligence Program of UFOs. His role in the Intentions Projects deals with identification and selection of study and control sites, as well as the development of the historical context of the atomic facilities and military bases. We'll also have Ralph Howard back. Of course, he was the one who did the AIA paper on the FAA unmanned aircraft systems and sighting reports. We've also brought back Tim Oliver, who's a contributing member. He's we got a PhD in chemical engineering, 2 bachelor's degree in mechanical and environmental engineering, and he chartered professional engineering status. He has an extensive experience in model physics and chemical systems, and has gained valuable insights from his work in academia, industry, and consulting, and has presented his research internationally. We're also bringing on Ian Porritt. So here's our last member. He is the SCU and SCU contributing member and also a Galileo affiliate. Ian is a seasoned analyst working in the research and development area with over 30 years of experience in New Zealand, Australia, and holds a bachelor's degrees from Massey University in New Zealand. Aside from his professional accomplishments, Ian is also an amateur astronomer with a passion for helping to unravel the mysteries of the universe. His work in this area has led him to contribute to the discovery of several exoplanets from his home observatory, including a remarkable Earth-like planet orbiting a single star in a binary star system known as, and it's a big long, you have to read that one, expanding our knowledge on how rocky planets form in binary star systems. Ian is a valued member of the SCU, where he specializes in data analysis, pulling information and identifying patterns within the data. Recently, Ian applied his expertise in data analysis to co-author the paper on UAP pattern recognition of the 1945 to 1975 U.S. military atomic warfare complex, which has garnered widespread attention and forms the foundation for the ongoing study on UAP intentions. Ian is also an affiliate of the Galileo project. So Ian's help has been invaluable lately in these studies, and he's the one who's kind of gathered and provides the data that we've been using on these studies. So welcome, gentlemen. Are you there?
Yes, here.
All right, there we go. And I believe we starting with Peter?
Yes, since you've already introduced me, I think I'll, this is sort of the engine room of the SCU. We kind of, we're a scientific organization, and I'm a project development director. And I'm going to just pass it on to the project leads to talk about their projects, and I'll come on at the end and see, where, we need help, and people that would like to get involved with the SCU. I'll go over the projects and some future ideas, and and tell you how you can get involved, and move us along to the direction we want to go in. We're growing actually pretty quickly, and I think this has been a fabulous conference. I'm sure that especially after the last presentation there, it's got my hair on end there. So I'll just turn it over, Alejandro, to you to organize the next speaker, and I'll be on at the end.
All right, we're all just excited from that talk about all this exciting stuff going on in Congress. I mean, just that it's going on at all, but of course, hopefully we'll get some funding for some great projects like the ones that we're doing. So I guess let's see. Robert, I guess you haven't presented necessarily a project, so maybe we'll start with you.
All right, thanks, Alejandro. Actually, the project that I'm going to talk about, all of your audience that listened to Robinson Trong's uh, pre-recorded presentation yesterday, that is the project that I will be talking about. To give everyone just a little bit of a background on that project, it was basically the idea that most of the reports that come into us are usually cases that are not valid cases or misidentifications. For example, is the most common thing that happens. Someone sees a balloon, they misidentify Venus, etc. So part of what we did in this project was to say, okay, what do the really good cases tell us? And so Larry and I bet we spent close to a year going through cases beginning in the 1940s up to the modern period. And we had a few other individuals that helped us along the way. But what we would do is we'd take cases that had some specific characteristics, such as daytime sightings. The object is close, is measured by large angular size. And as I mentioned yesterday, we used 0.15 degrees, which is roughly 1/3 the size of a full moon. We looked for multiple witnesses, or if it was a single witness, it had to be a very high quality witness. So to go through the Blue Book database and cases reported to New Fork and MUFON, etc., we relied a lot on what UAP or UFO historians have done over the decades. In other words, there are many cases people already knew about, and so we were aware of these cases also. And so we looked for cases that fit our criteria, starting with Blue Book and moving forward. And when we were done, we had 301 cases. We kicked out probably an equal number of cases. So we had like our sweet spot, and then the cases that might be good, and then the ones we just totally threw out. So we used the 301 from the sweet spot. What I might say that's important about that is we really tried to get cases that it would be hard to accept that a witness misidentified what he saw. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it made it much less likely. And so then the goal was, okay, when we take those 301 cases, what are the characteristics that we see on those UAP? That doesn't mean now that someone else might do the same work we're doing, and they might come up with 500 cases or maybe 200 cases, right? So they can vary, but our goal was to get that done. So once we did it, and it took about a year, we then began analyzing the data. And as I mentioned yesterday, there are a number of individuals who helped in the data analysis, including students from the University of Toronto. And then in the writing of the paper, myself and Sarah Little have done a lot in putting that together. It's gone through the SCU peer review committee, and we've gotten a peer review evaluations back. There are a few minor changes that they want, but there were no major changes. So we just need to get that done. And once we do that, we will either publish it on the SCU side or possibly an academic paper. So that's kind of gives an overview. So I would say for the audience, ask any questions you want. Doesn't matter what the questions are. And Alejandro, I don't know if people have questions that even go outside our projects. I'm sure the people on this panel would be glad to take a shot at them. So
we definitely have opinions. And out of the group, Tim or Ian or Larry or Ralph, if you have something prepared, maybe we can start with that just in case. Feel free to kind of pipe up and say, Larry, do you want to make some statements?
Yeah, on On the characteristics or on our presentation, because we do have a PowerPoint on the intention study.
Okay, let's start that then.
All right. We're doing that because actually we're talking about the intention study as a possible model for other studies in other domains. So Ian's brought that up, and I'll start off, and I'd like to give an introduction to what we're really trying to do to get the terminology right. And I think that's important because there may be some terms in this that people aren't familiar with. Ian and I are part of a team of SCU members. We've been involved in an ongoing intention study project over the last 4 years, amazingly enough. That's hard to believe, but it seems like it's been that long, actually. Our initial studies focused on the use of indications analysis to explore the possibility of intelligence and intent in regard to UAP activity within the military domain, specifically the United States Atomic Warfare Complex, over a 30-year period from 1945 to 1975. The project involves adapting the practices of indications analysis, which is an approach that was originally developed within the strategic intelligence community. It's been adapted by business and corporations for their own purposes, and we've adapted that to study. Sorry.
Oh, I think that was someone accidentally unmuted, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, people can check their mics.
So we've adapted this to the study of UAP incident and activity reports. To date, we have published a peer-reviewed pattern recognition study, which is available on the SCU website, and we've just completed a peer review of the follow-on study, which is an indications analysis in this same military domain. Bottom line is, first you do a pattern recognition study to look for anomalies. Then if you find the anomalies, you carry that on to evaluate what they appear to indicate in terms of multiple scenarios that might be in play. We hope and expect that this second paper, the indications analysis, will be published and again available on the SCU website within the next month. We're now in the process of extending our study from simply a military focus into the public domain. In addition, we're excited about the possibility of applying these study practices in other areas of UAP studies, and we wanted to run through it here to give an overview of the practices and the techniques to stimulate a dialogue on doing that. So I guess we can proceed to the next slide, Ian. And the thing that we're looking here is that intentions is a real challenge. Dealing the question is always asked, not just, what's going on? Is there intelligence involved with this? What is the intent? Is there a motive? Is there identifiable motive? And obviously, this is a very complex phenomena, very expansive phenomena, ranging from physical and chemical interactions all the way to experiences. We think this technique that we've adapted could be used across that scope of activity. So what we're trying to do is make everybody comfortable with what we're doing, have a dialogue with what we're doing, and show you an example of what we have done in this military-oriented study to maybe stimulate that dialogue. And I would say that this is going to be kind of a quick overview of what we're doing and of the practice. We have actually written an article that is available on this technique of intention study, and it's in the most recent copy of the SCU review. So if you'd like to get more detail, that's available on the SCU website. Go take a look at the most recent copy of the review for the background of this overview. All right, Ian, and Ian's here helping me doing this. He's running the PowerPoint. This is a picture of the intention study model that we've derived, which is essentially a process for identifying the best estimate of the situation. In intentions analysis, right off the front, I'll be transparent. This is not hard science. This is what the intelligence community faces. This is what I faced in marketing and corporate America when you're trying to figure out what your competitor is doing. You're trying to establish baselines of what's going on over a period of time, develop hypotheses, and then give a best estimate of what's really in play. But it's a segmented model. You begin with data collection. You've got to collect data over as long a baseline as possible. You analyze that data to look at it in terms of incidents, activities, and then you roll that up and evaluate it in terms of alternative scenarios. So you need to come up with a series of hypotheses that you're going to be evaluating your data against. And then finally, of course, you rank what seem to be the most probable of the hypotheses, least to most likely. But it ends up with an estimate of the situation. So we're not presenting it as doing more than it can do. This is what it does in the real world and national security and in corporate environment. So where do you start? Next slide. The point is you start, and Robert talked about criteria that we used in the characteristic study. We applied similar criteria here, but because we were looking at the military domain, we are also very hard-nosed in setting our criteria in terms of reports that basically, the best I could say is had some skin in the game. They're coming from military observers who are making official reports. They're coming from law enforcement officers who are making official reports, members of services, government agencies. That was a primary driving criteria, and this particular approach to curating data. And I would say our safe estimate among the team is we probably spent several hundred hours over a 2-3 year period of dealing with data and building an extensive database. And as with all things that SCU does, that data is available and published. The link for that data is available. We published it with our pattern recognition study, and it will apply to our indications analysis as well. So the fundamentals of all of this is data, and for our purposes, we have made that data available. Anyone else can take a look at it and reach your own conclusions. The next, following gathering the data and putting it in a workable form, is pattern analysis. Again, we started in the military domain, so we're looking for lots of anomalies in terms of elements of the atomic warfare complex, location of facilities, evolution of the production and deployment of the weapons over time, stockpiling, very complex issues. And again, that had to do with a lot of drafting the data into a form that Ian could do pattern analysis. And Ian has put together a large number of charts to try to portray the way we looked at the evolution of patterns, what we found in the terms of patterns, and you'll find that all of our studies are heavily charted, very graphic intentions. And again, full disclosure, everybody wants to use artificial intelligence on pattern recognition. Disclaimer here at the moment, we're just using our intelligence, primarily Ian's. Okay, next. Once we curated the data, built the database, once we did pattern recognition and anomaly identification and chronological anomalies over time, which is something that was very important, we had to come back and revisit the incidents and the activities. Because when you pull all of this together to do an analysis and do an evaluation, it's a mix of what patterns you found, what patterns you didn't find, and what's happening with the incidents and activities. We had to deal with incidents and activities at two levels of physically where they were occurring. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you see locations like within the atomic warfare complex, outside at other military sites, conventional military sites, infrastructure sites, and again, in non-military locations. We pull that all together as part of the analysis and part of the charting, as a matter of fact. And then you have to turn the other direction and start looking at the incidents and activities and talk about modeling those in terms of implications. How do those relate to individual scenarios? And we ended up in the end of over 30 indications that we ended up relating to scenarios. So analyzing patterns to identify activity indicators, a big part of it. And then the next, let's go to that. The scenarios themselves, intention scenario. This is the whole process we're talking about. The model is looking at UAP activity in terms of intent in this domain. And as I say, the first domain we studied was the military domain. We wanted to have the broadest spectrum of scenarios, that motives that we could come up with to fully recognize the complexity of the situation. So we ended up dealing with just four scenarios, over 30 indicators. That's going to make a pretty big matrix for analysis. We'll see that. They range some hypotheses that are fairly passive in terms of, say, a general military survey, a focused atomic weapons survey, to something that's much more active, something that's much more intentional, and a motive of preventing atomic warfare, a motive for preparation for military aggression. We wanted to cover the full spectrum, and we didn't feel that we would be doing justice to the study not to be covering the full spectrum. So what's next? What's next is to build a really big matrix, which we did with much struggle among the team. There are processes that you're supposed to follow and batting this information back and forth and stress testing it. And in any event, those are all part of the practice that you have to pay attention to. But the big point of that is it makes what you're doing very transparent. Each of the indicators were evaluated in relations to the various scenarios and intent. So again, 4 scenarios, 30 some indicators. First, we started by stressing indicators themselves. What's the quality of the data in this particular indicator? How solid is it? How high? Where do we rate it? Then where do we rate the quantity? How much was there? Very interesting. In some instances, we found some very high quality, sensational things. Somebody mentioned Malmstrom earlier this afternoon. That is not there in much quantity. So that adds to the complexity of the situation. And then the individual activities. You're going to see a lot of activities itemized in the study itself, because if you don't have a feel for the activity, you can't follow what we did in making the judgment call. And again, for the sake of transparency, this is a subjective process. It's as rigorous as you can make it, as transparent as you make it, but in the end, you're doing it subjectively, making the best estimate that you can. And I don't want to position it as anything else. Okay, Ian, next up. So this is where we ended up, and this is what you will see in the paper. And somebody else can repeat what we did, take another cut at it, see what you get, see where you end up. But in rating the scenarios, our estimate of the situation, our ranking of the scenario hypotheses, were that the least likely result of what we see going on. And I will be clear, we all agree that we see intention, we see intelligence, we see methodology in play. We do not see a strong case for military aggression. We do see a very strong case to estimate that what went on during those 30 years is a very focused survey of the atomic weapons complex, from original development and manufacturing through stockpiling, through deployment, and then, most interestingly, a resurgence as the deployment moved on to different weapons platforms. We would love to take this further than 30 years. If somebody would give us the data, this is as far as we can take it. So I think we could probably proceed to questions. That's about as rapidly as I can talk.
Okay, great.
Oh.
Thank you very much. I think that
Alejandro, we should probably give all the presentations and then open it to questions.
agreed. Yeah, the way the questions are set up also we'd need to do it that way. So let's move to the next presentation.
Let's Tim Oliver present.
Yeah, hi there. Alejandro, I've got a pre-recorded presentation.
Oh, yes. Let me run that.
But I could just give an introduction. So I'm involved in the propulsion related projects that SCU are doing. We have a band of qualified and committed individuals who are looking at various projects under the banner of propulsion generally. So I've got a pre-recorded presentation that I'll play, if that's okay. And I'll talk a bit about further aspects after the presentation.
All right, I'll get that right up.
Hi, I'm Tim Oliver, and I will briefly run through work that we are doing relating to UAP propulsion. Our goal is to understand the propulsion mechanisms of UAP, as well as how they interact with the air and water in which they move through. To achieve this, we investigate and model possible UAP propulsion mechanisms and their signatures. We develop means of data acquisition and collect, collate, examine that data, and learn from it, and also review historical data. This will be used to formulate and test various hypotheses in order to lay down a platform for future work. Shown here is a list of projects that we are currently working on or plan to commence shortly. All are in their infancy, and progress is limited by available volunteer efforts. Our propulsion-related projects are quite diverse, but they all channel into an overall strategy to uncover how UAP operate. The projects interrelate and feed into each other. I will briefly run through these now. Incidentally, many potential projects could be added to those shown here. Our Fluid Interactions project examines how UAP move rapidly through air without causing shock waves, sonic booms, or aerodynamic heating. We are exploring different options, including application of force fields, but also plan to examine localized time dilation, relativistic fluid dynamics, and alterations of the gravitational constant, for example. Our recent AIAA presentation relates to modeling the effects from the imposition of a force field generated by the UAP, for instance. But if a force field is used, it may or may not be associated with a means of propulsion. We also intend to investigate the behavior of solid objects entering or exiting water with minimal interference. Electromagnetic effects are associated with many UAP reports. The 5D general relativity plus 5D electromagnetism project is fundamental research and relates to the expansion of space-time to 5 dimensions, providing a linkage between Maxwell's equations and general relativity. Adopting this approach shows that there is a potential for a new force or an effective reduction in mass, which could be used as a potential means to propel a craft, and also as a means to insulate the craft from the physical environment. Application of general relativity for UAP propulsion involves the manipulation of space-time to propel a physical craft in space. But our focus quite distinctly is to examine UAP movement in earthbound environments, so through the atmosphere and in water in which they move. So the primary question would be, what would we be expected to see if these craft were moving through these media, should the craft be propelled using this type of mechanism? Magneto-hydrodynamic drives is another propulsion-specific project that we wish to explore. There are two aspects. Firstly, the use of a magnetic field directed ahead of the craft to prevent shockwave formation and minimize drag, but also the use of strong magnetic fields to form ions from the fluid in which the craft is moving. and accelerate these ions from the rear of the craft in order to propel it forward. There are strong signatures expected from this form of propulsion, and these can also be modelled. Radar is a powerful tool for detection, tracking, and ongoing surveillance of potentially interesting targets. In this research, we are examining the use of radar for this purpose and also modelling radar signatures that may be associated with particular UAP. For example, the effect of plasma sheathing or gravity modification envelopes on radar signature. This work is currently being undertaken with our partner, 3AF Sigma 2, a French-based research organisation also dedicated to the scientific study of UAP. The Historical Data Assessment Project involves gathering data from reliable databases relating to UAP events. The database will be designed to be searchable so that it is easy to collate events related to a particular UAP observable. This will allow these events to be easily compared, and this in turn may correlate with a particular postulated drive mechanism. Work is proceeding with a UAP mobile sensor platform. The platform is being designed to be low cost and portable and outfitted with a range of sensors. Its low cost allowing it to be more easily duplicated. The size of the system will be comparable to a couple of hardshell luggage bags, so it can be deployed and provide data for analysis from various locations of interest. Both field measurements and data analysis are planned to have AI capability. Associated with the deployed units will be a centralized computing capability that will permit permanent repositories of data collected and a computer network for data analysis, modeling, and simulations. The various areas of UAP propulsion-related research provide us with information that will allow for the development and refinement of hypotheses, and also actively allow us to use new and historical data to test these hypotheses. Contributing SCU members working on these projects are highly skilled and qualified, and most importantly are committed to working as a team. We would value contributions from suitably skilled and committed individuals to help with our research. Funding contributions would greatly help in all of the areas that I have covered here. So there is an enormous opportunity to contribute funding to a highly capable research team with a commitment to help answer questions relating to UAP.
Okay, thank you very much, Alejandro. So probably take questions later, but just to outline what we're doing, we don't know the answers to how these things operate, but we do have a strategy which should, if followed eventually, one would hope, uncover or give us an idea as to how they may operate. So that's really the focus of what we're doing in the propulsion-related projects.
All right, great. Thank you. So we'll move next, Peter, maybe to
Ralph.
Yes.
Reviews
Hello.
so what directions we're going in and what we've done and, with expanding projects.
great.
Absolutely. I've got, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation, but I do have a good narrative here about the drones team, which I'm going to read from here. We have 5 members on Project Drones, Bob Peterson, Keith Conroy, Bruce Mayo, Dan Bright, and myself as team lead. And we are using a phased approach. The video I presented yesterday on the concerning the AIAA panel about the UAS reports, drone reports, that was designated phase 1 and was completed with the conference presentation and then publication in their proceedings so far of my paper that we talked about yesterday, FAA Unmanned Aircraft Systems Sighting Reports. That was on June 14. That looked at a set of 1,317 FAA reports out of what are now more than 15,000 FAA published reports of pilot encounters with drones, going back to November of 2014 when the FAA started with these. We looked at, or I looked at, things like the UAS altitudes, the UAS position with respect to the aircraft that was reporting, the time of day of the incident, where it was location-wise, color, description if we had one, distance to the aircraft, and so forth, and highlighting things like near-miss air collisions and close approaches. So just to highlight those results again, essentially what I found was that large numbers of presumed drones are flying at altitudes thousands of feet higher than federal law or FAA regs allow, that simply assuming all of these are drones is questionable, and that a clear risk to civil aviation is apparent. Now, phase 2 is ongoing now and will be for a while. It's a large-scale study of the entire set of 15,366 reports of UAS issued up through September of 2022. There are some later additions to the FAA's database, and we do plan to add those. In phase 1, of course, I did the review and analysis manually, which took a lot of time. Obviously, this is not efficient when the data set numbers 15,000 plus. So currently, we are attacking the problem by creating computer program-based methodologies to extract additional, more complex variables from these reports. As I mentioned yesterday in my video, they are messy in terms of the language used and the terms used, lots of acronyms, inconsistent format and order to the terms. So it needs this approach. We want to go beyond the variables that I studied in phase 1, and we will. Our goal is to identify trends and relationships among the different variables. One main goal is to compare known drone characteristics and capabilities to the characteristics, where am I here? To the characteristics and capabilities demonstrated in the UAS reports. And then from that, we will consider and evaluate the possibility that some number of these UAS reports cannot be reconciled with drones and thus should be considered UAP. Phases 3 and 4 will repeat this analysis on Canadian and UK drone reports. The methodologies that we are using, this is a little heavy-duty computer language, but it will be interesting to many of you. Along 2 lines, we are moving. Both of these approaches have a great deal of iterative testing required for them, which takes time. The first approach is a deep learning neural network sort of approach, which involves creating and testing training data sets for all at once, multiple, sometimes complex, variable extraction, named entity recognition specifically. In this, we are looking at 2 of OpenAI's GPT models, not the Chat GPT, which is their chat robot version. We are looking at GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, and we are using OpenAI's online API, which is I'll describe in a moment, to actually fine tune the models that we are creating. We're using those 2 I mentioned as base models because it has to address our domain data set, which is the raw UAS reports, and specifically what's in that 4th summary column on each report. As you may recall, the reports are actually line items in Excel spreadsheets. The API is simply the online cloud interface hosted on Microsoft Azure that gives users access to the new pre-trained AI models developed by OpenAI. In our case, models 3.5 and 4. It's not the only, GPT is not the only large language model out there. So we're looking at other large language models such as SPACY, SPACY. They're their transformer model. The other approach is a more rules-based approach that uses regular expressions to extract the more simple concepts such as time, shape, and color. And with this approach, the extraction can be completely automated. Other methods can be used in tandem with regex, such as dependency parsing, though I could not tell you what that is. As we see things now, using whichever of these approaches works best, or possibly these in sequence, we intend to process all 15,000 plus UAS reports to gain the most useful and accurate information and results. SCU does plan to publish a paper on the results of the study. So I hope that explains a little bit of what we are doing. It's intense work, and I'm delighted to have the team members I do so that they can translate for me what exactly we are doing. But it's moving along. It's a difficult data set, and we will get this done.
Great. Thank you so much. It's all such exciting work. Lots of people in the chat, every time we talk about a project, they're like, yeah. So Peter.
Yeah. Can you allow me to, I want to show a couple slides.
You should be able to share if you click the share button.
Okay. What we talked about, and you've already had some presentations throughout this project on our current projects, and so I won't go over those again. But where the SCU's a scientific organization, and you can see we have actually quite a few projects going on, but we are limited in some of our abilities, and a few of these projects, like under Tim, the general relativity, MHD, and radar, we could use more people. And so first, I just wanted to put out, some ideas about the kind of people, if you want to get help, you want to help the SCU, and I'll talk more. It isn't just technical stuff. We can use help in a lot of areas. And so if you want to help the SCU, you can contact the help wanted and just, go on there. But I'll say, one thing, we're growing, and to have more projects, we're going to have project managers. And so people that have experience in project management in industry and those kind of things will be well welcomed. They can be technical, or they can work, people that have worked, non-technical people that have worked with technical people would be of great value to us. Of course, we always need physicists, engineers, and mathematicians. We'll find a use for you. And you may have interest in some of the projects you've heard. And I'm going to be talking about some future projects that these are just ideas, but may experience it. We need software developers to help with this, our future developments. People and know statistics, statistics are, it's really applied mathematics, applied probability theory. Also, you see that all these projects we're talking about all do deal with databases, and we're getting more into artificial intelligence. So people that have experience with database specialists and artificial intelligence would be of great help as we grow. Also, systems analysis engineers, people that can do top-down studies rather than from bottoms up. They can actually analyze a system theoretically from the top down, so we don't make so many mistakes. Not that we have made a lot of mistakes, but can minimize as we get more complex projects. Also, we do have intentions of doing field instrumentation, automated systems to be able to go out and search for do scientific experiments about UAP in different areas of the country. So, people with instrument field technicians, that experience in that kind of thing would be of value. A future thing we're not going to be able to do some of our most complicated projects without money. And one thing, some of our research, I'm pretty convinced, could get government grants if we have the experienced people to be able to write grant proposals. So people with experience writing government grants for this kind of stuff would be of great value. so some future, most of this is STEM. Well, most of this is nuts and bolts kind of stuff, what people call nuts and bolts. But we would like to also expand our projects into perhaps into genetics, evolutionary biologists, and extraterrestrial biologists. Theories about what these things could be, and also I'd like to see some social sciences, like psychologists. We've talked about, at least I've had a few conversations about the possibility of investigating a UAP PTSD type effect that people have seen, have had an experience or something like that, tend to see them all the time. What is the implications of this? The other would be cultural anthropologists, sociologists, those kind of things. And what would be the impact of UAP being revealed? We just recently, and previous to this, talked about the Gorsh. I think I'm pronouncing it right, Gorsh. What would happen if that comes out and is revealed as being true? What would be the impact on our society? I think that's a well worth studying. So those are some of the requirements I think we could use. So there's room for everybody to help the SCU. Some ideas for new possible projects, and these are just off the top of my head, but well, we talked about automated optical and RF detection systems. We have some of those things going on, but doing them in a more systematic manner. And a lot of our projects are using databases, and I'd like to see us having our own relational database system within the SU, which would be hosted on on the cloud, where all projects could use it. And so involved in that would be having a universal database specification system, where rather than each project having its own set of databases that they've organized in their own way, there would be a general, and these are studies, I mean, these are projects that just focus on these events, so that we would have a universal database system that would not have to be revised in the future. It would take databases it would be databases are organized into records and fields. The field would be so wide that we would not have to revise it in the future. It's a huge project, but it's a great objective, I think. Something else that's been talked about would be a cell phone UAP detection and recording app. This would be an app on the phone that you merely point your camera at if you have an event, and it would automatically set your camera to the proper, activate all of the recording mechanisms within the camera, which are huge. You could record magnetic fields, gravity, angle of where it's at, zoom in automatically, and then also relay this to a common database and to other cell phones that are also activating this. This is another huge project, but probably not beyond, perhaps someday, not beyond our capabilities. We talked about artificial intelligence. We'd like to have a project that that deals with organizing artificial intelligence so it can be used by all of our projects. And also having a centralized network, a database system that these different projects could report to. And some of these overlap, and I realize they're not clearly defined, but so be it. Anyhow, another project which would be more into the anthropological area would be an investigation of reported human-like ET as being human-like. What were the implications of that? From an anthropological, genetic, and or perhaps exobiology point of view. So these are some of the possible ideas for projects. If any of these interest you, if you have ideas for projects, you can contact on our website. We have a place where you can suggest projects, and if they make sense and they're within our capability currently, we might be able to move ahead with them. And so, because we're looking for new ideas all the time. So on that note, I'll close it, and thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. And does that conclude our project presentations?
Yes, I think so. I hope we haven't left anybody out. And
if we did, feel free to let us know, anybody.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll start to get into the questions.
Yes.
That people have posed for us. The first question: if budget wasn't as big an issue or lack of scientists, what would be a couple of your dream research projects into UAP studies? I guess this could be for the group. So anybody who has a pet project or an idea that way. Hopefully the person who asked that question has deep pockets and is looking for somewhere to put some money.
I'll shut up because I already talked about it.
I have a quick answer on that one, Alejandro. I would want a research vessel that tracked behind all of our carrier strike groups. So I would need, I guess, 10 to 11 of those research vessels.
That would be a good one. Any other ideas? No, I think everybody's so focused on their own projects. We're probably like, how about some money for what we're working on right now? All right, next one for Larry. Might observable patterns indicate intentional messaging?
That's a very good question. As a matter of fact, that's part of our extension. One of the reasons we chose to extend and include the public domain as well as the military domain was to address the question of messaging, communications, period. And so absolutely. And we're seeing some interesting patterns in those regard. I don't want to say any more than that because you want to approach it cautiously, but that's a question that we're addressing in the second phase of our studies.
All right, thank you. Next question. UAP's extraordinary motions are far more advanced than anything humans have, at least overtly. How long do you think it will take for our current physics and material science to catch up to the technology displayed in these amazing objects? So maybe someone in that realm who might have an idea.
I'll take a shot at that. I mean, that's pure speculation, but I would suspect it will take us several hundred years to reach that level of capability. Because, and the reason I say that is you're talking about interstellar flight. And today we have plans on the drawing board, NASA does, with the Breakthrough Project of sending basically a computer chip to the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, and it would take 20 years to get there using a light sail and lasers to power it. But that's a computer chip. To get anything larger, I think we're hundreds of years away.
Yeah,
maybe a combination of AI and cold fusion can help that. I guess there's new South Korea might have something, but Peter.
Yeah, I agree. For us to get first thing, I don't think there's one capability. My limited time in this thing, I don't think there's one type of, this phenomena seems to exhibit it, in my mind, multiple technologies. So there may be multiple entities involved here. But I think if we can make progress enough to show that that these things are, first we can understand, perhaps actually measure and see scientifically that they can actually warp space in some way. It opens the it's an existence proof. it means there's a way of doing it. And that would open up the money to be able to start, serious scientists to investigate it. If we don't get there, nobody's going to put money into it. And that, money, colleges and, universities and government grants and those kind of things make things move forward. And I think that we could start at least, get some of the technology, and not, maybe 30, 40 years, we might start seeing some, just today, and I don't know if it still holds up, or just yesterday or something, the South Koreans announced that they have, they think that they have room temperature superconductivity. That would be a huge breakthrough if that comes out to be true. I mean, they've actually published it in a journal, and it might be like cold fusion and turn out not to be right, but that would open up the door for huge magnetic fields, which, perhaps MHD propulsion could be advanced, or fusion for huge energy and in small containers, or very small fusion devices, which might open up energy possibilities that we don't have in the present. Who knows what, if we if we don't know something is possible, we're not going to be motivated. But if we can, and I think that's where our research should go, to show that these things are really happening and it's possible. I think that would make breakthroughs in itself.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I know there's a researcher, David Perkins, who felt that this phenomena, that's why they were kind of showing themselves, but not let it being accessible, that they're kind of in moving us along in our technology to show, hey, you can do this. So now go ahead and do it. Who knows? Okay, for Tim, if human scientists of the year 2023 are beginning to acknowledge space-time may not be fundamental, is it worth hypothesizing that UAP could operate by principles that are beyond the event horizon of our current understanding? Could they engineer the vacuum directly, as an example, harness what we currently label as dark, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. So, a lot of research has been directed into that area. We haven't uncovered viable options, but the quantum area is certainly a worthwhile area, there's potential to extract a lot of free energy. We talked about the massive amount of energy needed to power these craft. If that energy from the vacuum can be tapped, for example, it would allow and put to use, it would possibly explain the phenomenal performance of some of these craft. So absolutely, definitely, that is possible.
All right, next question. Let's see. Do we have evidence of high-speed acceleration in outer space, where the Nimitz tic-tac recorded by radar doing abrupt maneuvers in orbit, not the part where they accelerate from 80 to 20,000 feet? I think I don't believe that Nimitz, there's anything recorded like that, but are any of you aware of high-speed acceleration of a UAP in space?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of either. Let's see, next question. Larry, I don't general non-military. I'm not quite sure what this question is. I'll read it how it's written and maybe someone can interpret it. I don't general non-military, just technology survey of this civilization intent. How is that handled? I don't know. I'm not sure if I can interpret that question.
I think what they may be saying, and that's another, now that we're extending the study, one of the questions is, we happen to just focus on the military domain, but from a higher level perspective, looking at someone who's interested in our civilization, our society as a whole, is there a survey going on that's broader than just military capability, military weapons? So I think maybe the question is alluding to, are we considering, or might there be a much broader survey that gets into, our psychology, our social patterns, our behavioral patterns? And absolutely. And again, that's one of the reasons why we decided to extend into the public domain, to try to address that broader question. So yeah, there may be several different types of scientific studies going on beyond a military survey of any sort.
Yeah, and I could see where anthropologists and sociologists and people like that could be of help there.
Oh yeah. And by the way, the social scientist folks on the other question that was just asked, we're going for quantum entanglement, just to lay down a position.
Tim, in relation to 5D, they wanted to confirm, is this related to the work of Ferris-Williams dynamic theory?
No, it's related to Kaluza-Klein theory. So it's sort of based on Kaluza's theory, classical theory. And that was disrupted largely by quantum mechanics. But it's important to note that originally Einstein actually supported the theory, the unification theory proposed by Kaluza. And so there may, sort of classical approaches, there may be room for or unexplored areas that on a macroscopic scale that with further investigation could be uncovered. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that new information is uncovered. Yeah.
Next question is for you as well. You explored the 5D generalization of GR to include EM, but how does this square with the fact that this approach is rejected in mainstream physics? How does the team understand its connection to the work being done in theoretical physics on the central problem of the day, which is quantum gravity, for example? Do you see the project as potentially making a contribution here? I think I know who might have answered this question, actually.
So I sort of addressed that a little bit in the previous answer, but I think there's, the quantum mechanics is certainly disruptive to the concept of a classical unification theory. But there are very committed individuals that are committing a lot of their time to actually exploring this as an option. Very highly educated people. And they're making, one could argue, they're making progress in uncovering new information. So I would take the view that if it is not, a real thing over time, that it would certainly diminish in its in efforts that it would attract. But at the moment, it is attracting, considerable effort from committed individuals. So,
yeah, I'll pipe in there a little bit. Kaluza-Klein was abandoned when it's not completely abandoned. Actually, there some of that theory is actually being used in quantum mechanics, but it's been expanded and stuff. But it got abandoned when they couldn't generalize the forces in the atom. The strong force, weak force could not be combined into the general relativity equations. But just as today, Newton's theories of gravity and stuff were replaced by Einstein, it still works, and it makes certain predictions that, and it may be possible that the Kaluza-Klein, because it fits together so well, may make some predictions that point to new kinds of energy. And they kind of do this now with when they study black holes with gravity and quantum mechanics that don't really match, but they get on the boundaries of it. And they can kind of make some predictions at the boundaries. And there may be something like that with the 5D, that at the boundary level, we may get some new insights, some forces, because something is going on with these, if these things are real, you know, and it may point out. So abandoning it is, I don't think there's grounds for just giving it up, especially since we have kind of an expert in our group that knows it and has confidence in it. The other thing is quantum gravity and string theory are kind of stuck. They're not making a lot of progress in over the last 20 years, you know, and a lot of people are thinking we need a more comprehensive theory that surpasses both of them to unite them. Maybe they can never be reunited. I mean, who's to say that nature is going to be perfect and allow us to unite them? I mean, we'd like to think that, and it's always happened in the past, but maybe that's not going to happen.
All right, great, thanks. I think Ralph, I know, will have some information on this one. Are there UAP reports among the incidents listed in the FAA records? Are pilots reporting UAP?
Well, the short answer is no, although in my 1,300 or so, there were a couple where the pilots, interestingly, called what they were seeing an object. One of those was an object that the pilot felt was not moving. He actually used the word stationary. The other one, stationary, was just reported as a UAS with no description. But the pilots, if you look across the larger group of 15,000, we've used simple commands in the spreadsheet to just look for terms like UFO, saucer, UAP. I can tell you that UAP and UFO do not appear except 1 or 2 times, and those were in the earliest years, 2014 and 2015. And why the pilots did not word their report using those words is really unknown. It's anybody's guess. It's interesting that in about 2017, early 2018, the reports became a lot shorter with a lot less detail. And we have wondered about that. I have not queried the FAA about why, but it sure did seem like they wanted to shorten up the reports. But no, I think if there are UAP in there, then we will only know because of the descriptions being unusual, which I've highlighted. And I still wonder if when the pilot knows or doesn't believe that it's a drone, then what does he do? Does he report it or not? I'm speculating that now they can get away with reporting it. They could leave off the description. They can just not give a description and no one is the wiser. But it's not as if the FAA reports are, full of what you and I would recognize as UFO reports. Not really, no.
Yeah, I've been out here with Ben Hansen, who's really kind of drilled down on this issue. And technically, the only instruction he can find is that pilots are instructed to, when they get to the ground, call local law enforcement, which seems pretty silly. That's the only reference to UFO. Right. Also, we've polled pilots, and pilots have mostly said, either we don't know, and we asked specifically, well, what would you do if you were to report? Most of them said they would share it on social media. That's their method of reporting, or maybe try to get a hold of some group that might have an interest. But they didn't. There was definitely not feeling comfortable going through any official channel, which is pretty distressing, given that they know what's up in the sky and they're very detailed reporters.
Yeah, I think in Brian Bender, I think mentioned that, that there's not still an uncomfortable factor going, it still hasn't permeated that it's okay to talk about UAP, in general.
Yeah, this was one of the more shocking stories. This gentleman had a site that we've heard this week in regards to reporting. This gentleman had a sighting 30 years ago. Back then, he was told by his airline, which he still works for, not to report it. He mentioned that, that happened a long time ago. I think I'm going to put it on my website or up on my social media. His supervisor said, don't do it. Do not report it. 30-year-old report. And they're still telling him not to report it. So I think that a lot of the kind of prevailing logic is there that airlines don't want to be, marked as the UFO airline or something like that. But there's certainly a problem. But that is it for our projects section. We're now going to move on to closing. So we're actually going to forego the break because we don't really need a break if we're just going to come back and close for a minute. So we're going to close this out. All of you can see if there's anything any board member wants to comment on as far as closing comments, feel free. But I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to again thank Lee Dines and Robert Peterson in the background, helping us out on here. All of the board who make this happen, Robert Powell who helped get the speakers. I think our talks were just absolutely phenomenal. And I also want to bring on Rich, who of course I've been praising for his great work putting this all together. And he would like to give a closing comment.
Well, hello. I just want to say, kudos to Alejandro for doing the moderating for this whole thing. It's a tough role. This whole thing, I can't, if you could really appreciate the fact that in the past I've been doing the moderating role, the backdoor, setting up recordings and admitting people and stuff like that. It's been just a big time challenge. And so, great job, Alejandro. Thank you so much for taking this on. It allowed me to be able to do some wild stuff in the background in terms of trying to take care of all the people that are having problems and issues and stuff like that. So, also want to point out too that, even as late as last night, I was having to change the links to this conference because we had actually somebody that posted the link to the Zoom thing on Reddit. And so now we have suddenly almost 20, 25 people that didn't pay that were trying to come in. So anyway, big job. I was up at midnight trying to do that and stuff like that, but it worked out, I think, pretty well. I'm extremely pleased with everybody that actually presented. What an incredible conference this was, I think. And I just want to say kudos to all the presenters that we worked so diligently with, including going through rehearsals, spending time trying to help them walk through their technical challenges that they had. And it was a lot of work. But anyway, it was really, really good. And I just want to say, if everybody can, just maybe if you could unmute your audio and give a big applause to everybody that's put this thing together, that would be great.
Really thank you, Alejandro and Rich, for putting on such a great conference. I mean, it's really fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to all the attendees with great questions. The chat was full of great conversation. The questions were incredible. It's really a unique group we have here. And I think personally, this is the community that's really going to find the answers and move things forward. And I do agree with, Brian, we can't rely on what we might get from behind the curtain. We got to get out there and hit the streets and do what we can do on our own. And we can accomplish a lot. And this conference and the presentations were evidence of that. All right. Unless anyone has anything else, thank you all so much for making this conference great. Keep an eye out for information about next year. We're still working that out. And, feel free to contact us should you have any questions. Oh, Rich, got something?
One other little tidbit. So now I've got to take all of the recordings and replace those with the links where we had the Zoom links. So just bear with me. There's like, we had so many presenters and stuff like that. My next task is to go now link to the recordings to each one of those sessions we've had. So bear with me. I'll try to send a note out to all the people that attended saying, okay, I got it ready. It's all set to go, but you can come in here for 3 months and as many times as you want. I just wanted to say that, Alejandro. Thank you.
Great. And you can also interact. So you can continue to interact, and I'll try to get some speakers maybe to continue to answer questions that we might not have gotten to. So thank you all very much, and we'll see you next year. Well, hopefully we'll see you then sooner than that, but for the conference, we'll see you next year. Have a great rest of your evening.